meeting to order for Wednesday, April 11th, 2018. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak about any subject that's not a specific agenda item.
I think that's an agenda item.
That's an agenda item, okay. Item number 5, discuss and consider the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of March 14th, 2018. Any corrections, additions, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, oh, I wasn't here either.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
You
Motion and
two
second
that were here.
to approve the Plan
You
Commission
can still take.
meeting from March 14th, 2018. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Abstentions?
We
3 abstentions.
we don't have to abstain, do we?
No, we can.
Right.
Oh, we can vote, okay.
aye.
All right,
Yeah, because otherwise it couldn't pass.
right,
No.
5 ayes then.
Right.
All right.
Oh.
Item 6, discuss and consider approval of a zero lot line certified survey map application from Tony Kurdna to separate the parcel located at 652 Damascus Trail into 2 parcels. Couple of attachments in your packet. I'll let Aaron talk about it. Is Tony, is he here? No?
It's not, but
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. It's an existing duplex currently, on one parcel as a, under one landowner. They're looking to split it in half to sell the other half to a different landowner. It passed at the Utility Commission earlier this evening. We had a couple conditions related to the CSM. We'd like to see dimensions of the widths of the new parcels, and then just them providing us evidence that they've recorded the maintenance agreement.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. I'm assuming they'll be okay with that if we just pass it with those conditions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Mick maybe had some questions
Go ahead,
about the
Mick.
agreement though.
Yeah, I'm going to propose tonight that we do make a motion that the agreement that is to be recorded would be in a form that actually is recordable, and 2, that it would have to be approved by our village attorney. I don't know. I'm not sure why we have this form, because this form, I don't know. You definitely would not want to, let's put it this way, I would not suggest anyone ever record a form like this. It doesn't address a lot of the issues that should be addressed. It's not in a form that it could even be recorded. I'm not sure why we're providing it out there for anyone to even have for review, besides saying you have to sign it.
Mhm.
It doesn't even say who drafted the thing, and that's a requirement also in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, I could go through a whole litany of things, how it doesn't meet, section 706 or 59 of the Wisconsin state statutes, which are required for you to record a document in the state. But anyway, this definitely needs to be redone. I would think it would be best for the applicant to provide to the village attorney the document that he wants to have recorded, because we frankly don't know what all he would want to have recorded. I would also suggest that at that time that he also provide a title report so the village attorney can actually see if there's any liens that would even affect this, or if there are any other items that might affect the enforceability of this document. Other than that, I'm fine with it. It was just that this form should really not, in my opinion, be something that we provide to anyone and expect them to record it. And hopefully no one ever has done that in the past, because if they have, I feel sorry for them, because an example would be on this arbitration provision.
Mhm.
Just to file an arbitration like that is probably going to cost you at least $750 just to file it. And most issues that you run into, things like this, are not those sort of significant issues that you would go to arbitration, but this agreement requires that every single item or concern that you have that you can't agree on would have to go to arbitration, and there's certainly better ways to address those issues with a few missing shingles or whatever on your house than to have to go through binding arbitration with an arbitrator who's probably charging at least $300 an hour out of Chicago. But I don't want to go through the whole list of things that are wrong with it, but I'm sure Lee will be able to really take a look at it and come up. So if you're ready, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would make a motion that we approve with conditions this proposal. And one of those conditions would be, as set forth by staff recommendation, that the dimension of the width of the new parcels be stated on the CSM. And then also I would include in that that the applicant shall provide the village with evidence of a maintenance agreement in a form acceptable to the village attorney for recording for each of the parcels.
Okay, sounds good. I'll second that. Is there any other comments or discussion on that? Lee, does that work for you if they
Yeah.
give you the?
That'd be fine.
survey?
Are the applicants here tonight?
No.
Okay, then we'll contact them and let them know.
Yeah. All right, motion and a second then to have the applicant provide us with dimensions, the maintenance agreement in the recordable form that's approved by our attorney. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right. Item 7, discuss and consider approval of a certified survey map from Scott Frank to separate a new 2-acre parcel from an existing 66.3-acre parcel located at 1980 Rathard Road in the town of Cottage Grove within the village of Cottage Grove's extraterritorial jurisdiction. And I believe the applicant is here tonight, Scott? Okay, if you would come up here, please, and just introduce yourself, and I'll let Aaron talk about this item as well.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think Mr. Frank is just here in case there's any questions. Existing parcel out east of the village, they're looking to split one off to sell for a new single-family home. We didn't have any conditions to be placed on it. We recommend approval. Dane County, it sounds like, has already approved it.
Okay. Any comments or questions for the applicant? No. If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the request for a certified survey map from Scott Frank to separate a new 2-acre parcel from an existing 66.3-acre parcel at 1980 Rathard Road in the town of Cottage Grove within the village of Cottage Grove's extraterritorial jurisdiction. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just so you guys know, this will go to our village board next Monday, and that'll be the final.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, it's our oldest son that's living there.
Okay.
His 3 little girls aren't homeless anymore.
All right. Thank you. Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing for an opportunity for public to provide feedback on the proposed 2018 Village of Cottage Grove Park and Open Space Plan. There are, I believe, 4 attachments, documents in your packet. Sean is here, I guess, if he wants to talk about it, or if we have any questions on those. Any comments, questions from Plan Commission?
I have some.
Sure. Wait for the technology to catch up. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I just had a couple of questions. It's not just for my knowledge, I guess. So on page 8 and 9, it has the information about water bodies and drainage basins, wetlands. And so I was just wondering, any kind of for the, for the soils within wetland areas in the floodplain at the southeast and western edges of the village. Where are those on the map? Can you just give me a general?
So, southeastern, I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's, let's see, the floodplain at the southeast and western edges of the village.
Is that here, Aaron?
Yeah, if you look on map 1 on sheet 8, the kind of white with the blue speckles in it that shows wetlands, which,
here.
yeah, more or less lines up with the floodplain. I think the floodplain is pink, which is showing up behind the wetlands,
Oh.
but the area to the southeast of the village limits there, I think is where it's,
Okay, and then it said the western.
That would be over here, I believe, where it says
Yeah, that
zone
would
A
be-
and E.
Okay.
yeah, over between the village and the golf.
Okay.
And then the other question is, so the, there's the isolated wetland areas of the village, which is west of Forreston Drive, which is a white area, isn't it? And then also off of Cottage Grove Road, north of Cottage Grove Road.
I think that's Aiden. Right, Aaron?
Right there, right.
Yeah, maybe talking about the smaller one to the south of
Right here?
Governor Taylor Park.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think that's what it's talking about.
So nothing can be built on those, right?
I don't believe they can, no.
If the DNR considers them to be wetlands, then
I had some interesting reading this weekend. It was great. So how is the size of a park in a new area determined? I'm at page 29, and it's also on page 73, which is like 0.67 acres per plot. Is it?
yeah, so that's the figure that's,
0.067.
yeah, that's the figure that's within the ordinance for parkland dedication. So that's part of it. We also just kind of look at the physical context. The community parks are obviously going to be bigger than the neighborhood parks. We kind of looked at the service areas for the different types of parks. That's
So is it Cottage Grove ordinances or?
right. Yeah.
Okay. And then, how is it determined where the park's gonna be in the new development?
Yeah, we show general locations on the map. So we're trying to spread out the service areas to cover all of the residential areas. The final determination comes when the plat is designed.
Like, do the developers just decide, like, well, it'll work best here, and then we're okay with it, or?
We don't have to be okay with it.
But generally, I mean, so if we don't like where they put the park, we can always change it. Will the Parks and Rec committee?
Yeah, I mean,
decide?
typically they'll come in and meet with staff, and Sean's a part of that discussion, and we'll make our recommendations as, you know, for that in the context of all the other elements of the plat. And they usually come in here with the concept, get some feedback, and then they go through the preliminary and the final plat. So there's a lot of steps
Okay.
that gets discussed.
Good. So then on page 39, it says that the village has 9 park facilities equating to 1.05 parks per 1,000 residents, which is below the lower quartile. And I was just wondering, so are our parks larger than others? Because we are at 13 acres per 1,000 residents, but then we only have 1.05 parks per 1,000 residents.
Yeah, it was kind of strange that those numbers were so different than the comparison with the national NERPA, the National Recreation and Park
Yeah.
Association. In all those comparisons, we seem to be above the
Yeah.
median.
Right.
So yeah,
Our parks just might be
it's just the way
larger.
the averages
Yeah.
work out.
Are we just so condensed in one area that our parks are closer to houses or something? How big is the Shady Grove Park gonna be?
A little bit over an acre.
Is that considered a neighborhood park then?
We're kind of looking at it in two stages. There's a initial part that's part of the plat now, and then as that expands to the south, we would add on to that part because it's designed to be right in the corner there where we can kind of augment it. So I think ultimately we saw that as being a neighborhood park.
Yes.
So right now it'd be about 1 acre, and then when the other park got developed, it'd be about 2 acres?
Just-
We obviously didn't take as much parkland in that scenario as we could have. And kind of based on the survey and some other things that came out of Parks and Recreation, we decided, mostly based on the survey, that we wanted, the residents felt like we should develop what we have, make what we have better, instead of creating more. And so the initial phase of that, it's just going to be like a 1 acre park. But as Aaron mentioned, if they continue to develop, we'll back up another larger park, because it will need a larger park to service just that
So
simple.
it's approximately 5 is what we have in the text.
Make the question.
Yeah,
5
I think it
acres?
should be, I'd like to clarify on the record that the developer actually had proposed to offer more land for the park. It was actually the Parks Department that said, no, we would prefer that it be a smaller park and we'll take dollars instead of acreage.
That's correct.
So we
I-
could get equipment.
It should not be held against Shady Grove for
No.
having less acreage than what, might be the standard that we
Not
have
at all.
in place.
It was kind of backed up by some of our survey data where a lot of the, majority of the respondents were really looking for improvements to existing parks as a higher priority than adding parks. But obviously, as the village grows, you need parks in new areas.
Right.
In the village of, excuse me, the village, of course, received money from the developer to go towards other improvements in the future for some of the larger community parks.
Melissa, if you look in the ordinances, starting at section 274-62, goes for 3 or 4 pages, that goes through the calculations and of the land and also fees in lieu.
Okay, thanks. Looking at that. Just a few more things. So on page 57 with, which is about the proposed park facility descriptions, and at the top it has the MSB, the Municipal Services Building with the 1 space used for indoor recreation. So now that we have that extra space next to it, is that gonna be added to this, or is it not technically?
I guess at the time this was written, we hadn't started using that yet, so it says additional vacant space remains for conversion. I guess we've already started that process, but I guess the more permanent conversion of that would need to be budgeted and happen in the future. But we're-
So I was going to state, I think you had stated before, Sean, about $25,000 will be needed or
Correct.
something in that range to actually bring it up to the same level or a level that would be similar to what we have on the other side. Although it's being used now for quite a few events. Was that dart game event, was that occurring over there?
Last night, yeah,
Yeah, that was quite interesting to see that,
yeah.
that video.
That was an interesting, an hour. That was fun.
Okay, anything else?
Just
Yeah, go ahead.
So on the next page, 58, I was just wondering, it says updates for the parks and the years. And so we have a couple things going in this year, like the tennis courts and the playground, and then some things in 2020 and things in 2022. And I was just wondering, is the, like in 2019 and 2021, is there nothing because we're saving up for the other things, or we just don't need anything those years, or?
I think that's, when I originally did it, it wasn't necessarily scheduled as a bunch of things in 2020. I think that was more of a financial management plan, that things got condensed into a couple of years as opposed to spread out a little bit more. Matt, can you help with that?
Yeah, if there are things that are, if there are things that are from other departments that are going to be borrowed for, they like to try to not borrow every year for smaller things and try to wait for economies of scale of doing multiple projects in one year if you're going to borrow.
Sure.
So.
So it's a matter of, and then for these things as well, it's like their lifespan has gone, I mean, they need to be replaced because they're getting old type
Right.
of thing?
Especially like the playground, some of our playgrounds are pushing 30 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, the original ones, but for the most part, you can get 20 to 30 years out of most of those things. So any of the improvement stuff, roofs and stuff that are coming in the future, those are long-term fixes that are, I don't think any of us will have to deal with those moving forward again.
This probably isn't your question, but do you know, let's see, for page 63, when the bike path on Main Street is gonna be all the way through from Main Street to the interstate? That's probably not your area. It's just a question I had.
That.
Like by
A couple
culverts.
times in the financial management plan. That may have been either 19 or when did he not have a park? Maybe one of those other.
Yeah, 19 or 21.
I can't remember. Yeah, I can get back to you as soon as I
Okay.
get back to.
I was just curious. And what is the urban plaza? What's the proposed urban plaza? Page 70 and 71.
Going to put a placeholder in the future park facilities for a smaller, kind of more urban open space somewhere in the intersection here as this area redevelops. Not a specific place identified, but it could be, as this corner redevelops, that can be part of the plan, and we wanted to
Oh, okay.
put a placeholder in here for it.
Great. That makes sense.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. Anytime soon.
Well, it's good that it's in there.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay.
Hope that was painless.
Sure, that's okay.
Here's my real concern, it's really addressing the ADA issues. I mean, I appreciate, Sean, you pointing out what the deficiencies are, but to me, it's just sad to see so many deficiencies in our parks. I mean, you start North Lawn 20, Community Park 27, Governor Taylor 5, Houston 18, Willow Run 12. I mean, you just go down, the list. It's just, I hope that the board will really look at what's going on here in some of our parks and try to work to make them accessible to all of our citizens, not just some of our citizens.
No, I agree, and things have changed so much since 2012, and most of our parks, all of our parks are, prior to 2012, that's really when they started looking at parks and recreation as being covered under ADA. So, I know it's no comfort, but everybody's in the same boat. So anything that, moving forward, anything that we do will absolutely be 100% ADA accessible.
Okay. Any other questions for Sean? Okay. Anything from JJ or Matt or anything else on this?
2019. For the
Okay.
bike path,
Okay.
extension.
Great.
Thanks. Okay, I guess if there is nothing else, we can close the public hearing. And, there it is. Okay, so at this point, we'll close the public hearing on agenda item number 8. And that brings us to number 9, discuss and consider approval of the 2018 Village of Cottage Grove Park and Open Space Plan. Does anybody have any further questions on any of the things? I know it's a rather encompassing document.
There's also a resolution that was in the packet. That's technically what the board would be approving as the mechanism for approving the plan.
Right, so item 9 probably should say approval of the resolution. Is that,
Yeah.
okay. Any comments, concerns on that?
Just want to note how significant the process of putting this all together is, and, particularly the work of Aaron and Sean on getting all this put together. It's pretty impressive.
This was done in-house, and we probably saved $15,000 minimum doing it in-house. So we were fortunate enough to be able to, we hadn't changed that much since 2010, which was good. It saved us some money, so.
Yeah.
And Aaron did a great job with this.
Thank you for putting that together and going after the ADA issues and that kind of thing. Appreciate it. At this point, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the 2018 Village of Cottage Grove Park and Open Space Plan. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the Park and Open Space Plan. Any other discussion, questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Number 10 is discuss and consider initial public participation questions to be placed on Polco Internet Survey website for the comprehensive plan update. That's something that you'll see on a lot of municipal websites. I know like Sun Prairie has it, a lot of communities. So. Does anybody have any specific questions?
We started talking about this last time, and we were kind of strategizing the way to approach a few different issues. Since then, POCO reached out to me. They have people on staff who specialize in statistics and putting together survey questions. So I have another follow-up call scheduled with them on Friday to go through these a little more specifically and kind of tap into their experience on how to craft the different questions.
So they could give us kind of a template to work off of?
Not even necessarily a template. They kind of look, specifically at what we're trying to achieve, and
Sure.
they'll work with us on the best way to ask. and
Okay.
get at them, so.
We could leave that on for next agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, at this point, then I guess I'll make a motion to put item 10 on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to table item 10. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. 11, discuss and consider directing staff to research a potential zoning amendment related to a short-term rental land use. You'll see the attachments in your packet. Basically, short-term rentals are now legal in Wisconsin, and there's a couple of documents there to kind of explain it. It's for people who, I guess, want to rent their house for a weekend or whatever, but I'll let Aaron talk a little bit more about that.
This has never really come up here until a couple weeks ago. A resident was interested in the possibility of doing this and wondering whether it was allowed here. So we kind of researched it. It's a fairly new phenomenon since our zoning ordinance was written. Certainly you're allowed to rent your house, but it's a little bit different to rent it out, for a weekend. So our ordinance as written doesn't really address that at all. So I think what we're looking for is just the green light from you guys to have myself and Lee kind of take a look at how we could address this within the ordinance. By state law, as Jack said, it's allowed. We can't just say you're not allowed to do it. We can put some limitations on it. You can say that the rental has to be for a minimum of 7 days, which in effect would kind of prohibit a lot of these because most commonly it's for a weekend or a long
Sure.
weekend or something. You can also limit it to 180 days out of a year. How we track that is kind of a different set of difficulties, but it's something you can put in there according to the state law. And then there's also the issue that we have a room tax in the village. It hasn't really been implemented because we don't have a hotel in the village yet. It was put into place in advance of that, but these Airbnb or similar uses are supposed to be paying that room tax, so it's also, we'd have to look at, what is the mechanism for them making us aware that they're doing it and collecting it.
Right, and I guess the one point that I took away from there too is just because it's not addressed in the ordinance doesn't mean it's allowed. Some people construe it, if the ordinances say nothing about it, then it must be okay, and that's not really how that's supposed to work, so,
Right.
yeah.
So we kind of have to address it because it has to be allowed to some extent. So.
Right.
I guess I would interpret that a little differently than that. I mean, under state law, we can't regulate it. If it's between 1 and 7 days, that's really the period I thought that you were trying to address, because if you go over 7 days, you can just rely on the state law if we wanted to. I mean, we wouldn't need to do anything. It's really that period between 1 to 7. If we say it's a business use, then it would be something that currently under our zoning code wouldn't be allowed. Is that correct? I mean, I think that's what we're. Here's my concern with this: is what are we trying to address here? If we're trying to address the 1 through 7 day period of time, saying we're going to allow that, I get that. If we're trying to move beyond that, the reality is, if you go on and look at Airbnb now, you'll find like 2 listings for Cottage Grove, which I would guess it's almost, de minimis how many times those are being used in a year. So are we using a cannon to kill a mouse kind of thing here? I don't know. Could be, depends what you come up with in the ordinance. My concern is just giving you direction to go out and do an ordinance. Will we end up with something like Madison, which is very restrictive? Or are we just going to try to address the 1 through 7 days? Are we going to put a limitation on the number of days per year you can do it, whether those have to be consecutive days or not? I mean, all those sorts of things you can get into, and I just would like to get a sense of really from the commission really what we're talking about, and not just sending Aaron out to just start drafting without any direction.
I mean, if it's addressed by state law after more than 7 days, I think that would probably be kind of the focus of what you'd want to come up with, to address whatever is not covered by state law, or what we are allowed to address by state law, I guess.
Yeah, it's really as Mick said, the stays that are shorter than that are probably what's going to be what people would really want if they're going to use this. And I guess, do we want to allow that or not is the question.
I mean, if we do this a lot, I guess a good research point would be at what are other communities doing. I mean, I don't know, but I'm fine with giving staff direction to address what we have the authority to address, I guess. Is that?
Well, I can tell you what Madison does, and they have I think a full-time person that just goes out there and hunts for people that are violating Madison ordinance. And they'll be on top of you like you wouldn't believe if they find somebody in one of your apartment complexes that's doing it. As a landlord, you probably don't even know it until you get contacted by Madison saying someone in your apartment complex is, putting this on.
They're probably just going around trying to rent on, it's a staff person trying to go rent places in Madison on Airbnb.
I would doubt if we're headed that direction to try to.
Right.
There's only 2 of them now being listed in the village, but I think it makes a lot of sense to allow the 1 through 7s, especially since we don't have a hotel here.
Right.
And we do have quite a few events actually that occur here within the village.
Yeah, Fireman's Festival, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And all of the other things that are happening over here now, that we have the rugby teams and all that.
Okay.
So I don't know, I just like to get a sense of what everyone else thinks we should be doing.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with the 1 through 7 days. Any other thoughts?
I think 1 through 7 or 1 through 6 days as well, because even if you have family come visit, there's no hotel close. So if they can go stay somewhere else, that's might be a lifesaver.
Right. Any thoughts on that, Fred? I mean, the 1 through 7s?
It's fine. I was talking to Lee, because we do have a room tax ordinance.
Yeah.
But I believe the first $1,000 is typically exempt. I think that's state law for a business. So.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a whole lot of tax.
Depending on how often someone's renting their place out.
Right.
and for what they're renting it.
I think that we're looking for just exactly what Mick was talking about, which is some direction and not just, okay, let's see how complicated or simple an ordinance you can come up with. And, you know, I think that just doing the 1 to 7 day makes a lot of sense. And if state law covering longer periods, then, you know, we would try to focus on that. But it's just helpful to get some idea of the sense of the commission.
Sure. Is everybody fine with the 1 through 7 days and then reference state law for the longer period?
Yeah, I think what Melissa was saying is correct, it'd be 1 through 6 days.
The way it's worded, okay, yeah.
7 would be.
They start with day 7, okay.
I guess the other way to kind of think about it, if your neighbor was doing this, what would you be concerned about?
Right.
When you want to make sure we're addressing any issues you might have that way as well.
Okay.
Would there be a license from the municipality required then?
Some places do that.
That's one of the things that, well, when the ordinance committee was in existence, we had a form, it was kind of who, what, when, where, why, and how, every time somebody wanted an ordinance, because it's like, it's always presented, well, everyone in the village wants this. Well, it turns out it's one person that wants this. And so I think that, you know, we'll try to go back to that and ask people for this specificity in terms of what they want us to do. Just give us some direction. And, you know, as I pointed out at the village board, we don't really have a budget for ordinances per se. So we've gotten, let's see, it's April, and I've heard 5 or 6 different ordinances talked about since the beginning of the year. And the question is, okay, how do we handle that?
I just want to clarify, I mean, it's not that we don't have a specific legal ordinance budget, and I think that's kind of what Mick might be asking about too, as far as direction, because, you know, if it's an ordinance and Lee gets involved, there's a budget for it, it's our general legal expenses, so it's that kind of discussion that we're.
And some of the potential ordinances can be specific to committees, like law enforcement was talking about the fireworks issue, where Parks and Rec could have an ordinance and bring it forward, I think.
Sure.
So, okay. So if we're okay with the 1 through 6 day, I guess if that's okay with everybody, I'll make a motion to direct staff to look into an ordinance covering the 1 through 6 day short-term home rental land use ordinance. Is that okay? Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to direct staff to research a zoning ordinance for the short-term home rental use from 1 to 6 days. Any other discussion?
Yeah, so all we're talking about is possibly having an ordinance. We're not authorizing them to write a new ordinance.
Right, they're gonna kind of show us that.
Draft.
A recommendation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
that's good. Okay. Anything else? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Update on the Community Development Authority's discussions regarding the creation of a new tax increment TIF districts, and you'll see a document in your packet on that. And I guess you could talk on it, or Eric?
Yeah, I'm mostly just trying to keep this committee up to date with what the CDA is doing. The CDA met Monday. We had Greg Johnson, who's our financial consultant from Ellers, at that meeting, kind of giving an overview of the process and the timeline. Basically what we decided at that meeting, we'll have draft project plans for the CDA to look at on May 14th. And then we're going to do a public hearing at a special CDA meeting on the 22nd. And the joint review board that also has to approve these documents would also meet earlier that night. So that would give us the opportunity to bring those project plans in for the planning commission to look at ahead of the public hearing as well.
All right. I think, Aaron, also, the board will see this on the 18th of June, is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
June 18th.
And that's because there's a certain amount of notice required between the hearing and the
And if anyone's aware of, we need a public member at large in the village that would be interested in serving on the joint review board, possibly.
Yeah, I'm saying, others suggested it shouldn't be someone who's on the CDA or the board, but I guess it could be someone from the plan commission. Anyone were so inclined.
All right.
If anybody is interested or knows anybody, please let us know. Go from there.
Should be relatively painless.
All right. Sounds
Just a
comment-
simple-
Comments from
simple
commission
motion.
members. Don's not here, he's excused tonight. Nick, any?
No, nothing to report.
Okay, Phyllis? Melissa? Brad?
No.
All right. I have nothing either. So that brings us to future agenda items, which I think we had number 10. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of those be about short-term rentals.
Yep, and we'll come back with the short-term rental one as well. So we have item number 10 on the short-term rental ordinance for next meeting. Anything else?
Probably the final plat for Parkview Ridge.
Okay.
On the way on that.
Final plat for Parkview. Anybody have anything else for next agenda? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Awesome.